This is an exaggeration. This week, Trump's version of draining the swamp looks more like flooding it with billionaire cash and Gulf oil money. He's literally taking gifts from foreign rulers, billionaires, and corporations while claiming it's all to help the troops. And now we've got an ethics lawyer, a guy who actually helped write the rule book, here to explain just how far over the legal and moral cliff this administration has gone. We're talking about a $130 million donation to the military, a $5.5 billion golf course in Qatar, and a president who seems to think Air Force One is a personal taxi for the ultra-rich. You can't make this up, so buckle in, because this interview with Ambassador Norm Eisen isn't just about ethics. It's about whether the presidency itself is now for sale. And trust me, by the time we get to the end, you'll see why this moment feels less like governance and more like a live-streamed auction of American democracy.
Was the top ethics lawyer for Barack Obama, founder and executive chair of Democracy Defenders Fund, and also co-founded CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Norm, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I want to start with this $130 million to the military. When I first heard that story, first off, it seems so bizarre to me because it's not a private army. I don't ever remember seeing service members out washing cars in the driveway to raise funds. So I don't know how someone can give that kind of money. Don't just tell us the ethical implications of this, but how is this money going to be used? Can it just be thrown in with our tax money? Like, what is the background of this and how could it actually be distributed?
Jason, I never would have allowed a private individual to pay the salaries of military members, because whenever people write checks, large ones, like for $130 million, that comes with strings attached. And Donald Trump has put the government up for sale to the high bidder. And that idea, another reason I wouldn't have allowed it when I was giving ethics advice in the White House, was because the law has standards that are breached by this payment. If the military cannot be paid by Congress, you can't do an end around, and the law says so. No end arounds to have a private individual pay. Moreover, the Pentagon is using its gift authority, but you can only use the statutory gift authority for proper purposes. Like with that gold-plated jet where we at Democracy Defenders Fund objected, and we filed a complaint with the Office of Inspector General. This huge payment is not in America's best interest, besides which it's not enough to pay the service members.
That's what sort of hit me about this. And I want to show you this list right now. Bernie Sanders put up a tweet recently on corporate tax breaks and the ballroom donations. So we're already talking about the fact that some random person, again, who we don't necessarily know because it's a reclusive person, gave $130 million to the military. Now we see that Trump's big, beautiful bill gave to Google, gave Amazon a $16 billion tax break, Microsoft, Facebook, and lo and behold, now all of these corporations have given him money for this $300 million addition to the ballroom. What is going to be our obligation, or how can we track these companies going forward? Because they got a tax break, they're funding the new East Wing. How do we know they're not also just going to be getting deals in Congress, and how would we potentially stop that as a country?
Well, the American people are going to be the ultimate guardrail, Jason, because they elected Donald Trump on a promise to drain the swamp. He's flooding the swamp with corporate cash. And if you think these enormous sums, huge checks to the Pentagon to build the Golden Ballroom, to provide this gilt Air Force One, if you think those don't come with strings attached, you're not paying attention. Corporations view this as an investment. They want returns. They're getting those returns, and they're going to demand more. So for Donald Trump to scratch his itch, he wants that ballroom, he wants that plane. We run the risk of the American public interest being sold out. Now, there's a variety of other laws that are implicated at the Democracy Defenders Fund. We're litigating over 200 cases and matters. And I think you're going to see more litigation because these payments are illegitimate.
What did we just witness? Let's break this down, because beneath the sound bites and sarcasm lies a terrifying reality. The line between public office and private enrichment is disappearing fast. Norm Eisen just laid out the blueprint of a government-turned marketplace. When a former ethics lawyer says you can't have private citizens paying the military, that's not political spin. That's a constitutional alarm bell. The U.S. military isn't a GoFundMe project. It's funded by Congress, accountable to the people, not to billionaires writing six-figure checks in exchange for influence. Yet here we are, with a sitting or former president entertaining precisely that scenario. Let's talk about the money trail. $130 million from a mysterious American billionaire, $5.5 billion for a golf resort in Qatar, and corporations like Google, Amazon, and Facebook conveniently receiving huge tax breaks while donating to a golden ballroom at Trump's new complex. This isn't philanthropy. It's lobbying wrapped in luxury packaging. Every dollar is a handshake. Every gift an expectation. Every project a debt waiting to be repaid with policy favors. Eisen's warning is clear. These transactions come with strings attached, and those strings tie directly around the throat of public trust. When defense budgets meet private wallets, when Air Force One becomes a flying symbol of corporate gratitude, and when the Oval Office is treated like a checkout counter for the ultra-rich, democracy stops being a system. It becomes a service. Now, some might shrug and say, well, politics has always been dirty. Sure, influence has always existed, but there's a difference between lobbying a policy and owning the policymaker. Trump isn't just blurring that line. He's erasing it with a gold-plated pen, and the defenders of this behavior, the ones shouting, why fake news whenever accountability shows up, they're not protecting America. They're protecting access. Remember Eisen's point, corporations view this as an investment. They don't give for charity, they give for returns. Those returns could be contracts, deregulation, tax loopholes, or even silence when human rights issues surface in their supply chains. And the more money flows unchecked into politics, the harder it becomes for ordinary citizens, teachers, factory workers, veterans to compete for the government's attention. Let's not miss the symbolism either. A $5.5 billion golf course in Qatar, while millions of Americans struggle with healthcare, rent, and food insecurity. A gift plane for Air Force One, while the government teeters on shutdown. It's luxury politics in a time of economic anxiety. The elite playing Monopoly with real countries as their properties. Eisen calls this flooding the swamp. That phrase hits differently now, doesn't it? The promise to drain corruption turned into an open invitation for it. And the saddest part, it's working, because outrage fatigue is real. Each scandal piles onto the next until the public can't even keep count. Today, it's Qatar. Tomorrow, it's some mystery donor from Palm Beach. And every time, the story ends the same way. No accountability, just applause from those cashing in. But here's the truth. Democracy survives only when people stop normalizing this. The guardrail Eisen mentioned isn't Congress or the courts. It's the people watching right now. It's you, the voter, the taxpayer, the one who actually funds the system being sold off piece by piece. When you stop expecting integrity, politicians stop providing it. Let's zoom out for a second. Across history, authoritarianism rarely arrives with tanks and torches. It creeps in through corruption. It's the slow rot of ethics, the steady sale of favors, the normalization of greed disguised as patriotism. Trump's world of gold golf courses, private donors, and hush-hush deals isn't an anomaly. It's a warning. When leaders treat power as profit, nations eventually pay the price. So what now? Awareness is step one. Accountability is step two. That means demanding transparency on donations, tracking corporate influence, and refusing to let billionaires write national policy from private jets. It also means calling out hypocrisy wherever it hides, even when it's wrapped in a flag, because patriotism without integrity is just branding. Look, this isn't about partisan warfare. Whether you wear red, blue, or couldn't care less, everyone loses when public trust collapses. A government for sale doesn't just sell out its opposition, it sells out its future. So as we wrap up tonight, remember this moment. Remember the absurdity of hearing that a billionaire can donate to the Pentagon. Remember that the same man promising to save America is cutting deals abroad while claiming moral authority at home. And remember that silence, ours, yours, mine, is the final currency corruption counts on. Did you catch that? The presidency, the military, even ethics itself, all up for bids. Crazy, right? But it's real. If you want more fearless breakdowns like this, the kind that cut through the noise and call power by its name, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Carter TYT. Because the fight for truth isn't just about watching, it's about refusing to look away.